Ladies and gentlemen, we are currently holding for further traffic clearance.
Check out Kristen's new website, magicaljourneysvacations.com, for all your vacation needs. Disney, Universal, cruise lines, and more.
Thank you for traveling with us.
magicaljourneysvacations.com. Have her book your magical vacation today.
WDW After Dark, now loading.
Welcome back to the program. It is WDW After Dark. Aljon, Kristen, and Eric here for another bonus episode, bonus content, if you will. The 40th anniversary of Star Wars happened recently, and we all appreciate the fact that George Lucas started this most epic film franchise in 1977. And it's hard to believe it's been 40 years of sparking the imagination of an entire generation and more. So the question, Eric, would you like to pose a question to our panel here?
Yes, I believe I would like to pose a question to the panel here. And by the panel here, I mean the two of you.
Yes.
Since we are just on the other side of the 40th anniversary of Star Wars, what has been your favorite Star Wars experience / memory?
Do we have
now
to
realize
like
y'all are young people, and therefore you don't have the full 40 years of experience like some people on this podcast, but you know. But just what one of the strongest things that come to your mind? Good things.
Anything Star Wars.
Anything Star Wars. It does not have to be like first time seeing the movies, not like your first Star Wars action figure, just anything.
Okay, I'm going to say mine has been going to Star Wars weekends and meeting some of my favorite Star Wars actors and voice actors. I got to meet Dee Bradley Baker and Ashley Eckstein from Star Wars The Clone Wars, and that was awesome. And also Sam Witwer. And then from the actual movies, I got to meet Ray Park. So I got to meet my favorites from the shows and the movies going to Star Wars weekend. So I would have to say that has been my favorite. And all of them were actually really great with their fans. And poor Sam Witwer had like the worst allergies. And he's like sitting there with a box of tissues. And, you know, you're just like, oh, that poor guy having to like sign autographs. You know, people are kind of looking at him like, are you sick? You know, you're thinking he's got to be bummed sitting there with people thinking he's sick and not just that.
Are you contagious there, Sam Witwer? That sort of thing. Yep. Yeah.
I think I echo Kristen's sentiment on that. I mean, Star Wars Weekends was just an incredible experience for so many people. And I know for me, I enjoyed getting to meet, you know, Billy D. Williams and Dave Filoni, the director of the Clone Wars, and to meet Jeremy Bulloch, who originally played Boba Fett, and to meet Dee Bradley Baker and Ashley Eckstein for the first time, and so many Disney fans. You know, I mean, that was just a really great time. unprecedented access to the stars of the saga, unprecedented, and I miss it. I really miss Star Wars weekends. Kristen will tell you, it broke my heart one year when I couldn't make it, and one year I could make it and Kristen couldn't make it, because it was something that I really, as a, I really look forward to the time that Kristen and I could spend together during Star Wars weekends, taking in the panels and taking in all the great shows, Warwick Davis's show, or James Arnold Taylor's show, or whatever the case is. It was just so much fun. And not to take anything away from Star Wars celebrations that we've experienced in the past, because those are great, but the fact that it was inside Hollywood Studios was so much fun. And it was like, coming home, and it was something that I'll never forget. But I will say this, a kind of related Star Wars memory that I will enjoy is actually being right next to George Lucas with Kristen and Bubba and Taylor, watching the Tiki Room with George Lucas. I'll never
That
forget
qualifies.
That.
That
That's pretty
qualifies.
cool.
It was super cool and surreal. I have never met George Lucas, and this encounter doesn't mean that I had met him, but to experience something with him and his family was very special, because the look on his face of wonder and awe and enjoyment, and just sitting back and watching the audio animatronics of the Tiki Room, the Walt Disney enchanted Tiki Room, mind you. Okay, this is no
under new management.
This is not, Tokyo Disney's Tiki Room with Stitch. This is none of those other, overlays or any of that stuff. This is the original Walt Disney's enchanted Tiki Room with George Lucas, the man, sitting next to us. And it was a very special moment for me, just to be in the same room and very close to someone whom I've held in such high regard for so many years, and have so much appreciation for the enjoyment he had brought to my life personally. Was just great. I'm probably much like Eric in the fact that we grew up loving the Star Wars action figures. One of the very only ways that we could experience replaying Star Wars in our minds and having adventures and letting our imaginations run wild with these little 3.5-inch pieces of plastic running around in our room and outside, and playing in crazy adventures with our friends, with these action figures that would allow us to go into a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. I think that was just really cool. But I just have a lot of fond memories about Star Wars, and still do. And I'm still making those memories today with friends, watching movies and going to the parks and experiencing Star Wars conventions. And it's just a lot of fun. And, I'm just glad that this franchise means as much to me as it does for so many millions of people around the world. If people would just, watch Star Wars, and the world would be a better place, don't you think?
Oh, yeah.
So, does that answer your question, Eric?
It's in the ballpark. Yeah.
It's in the ballpark. Okay. All right. And how about you, Eric?
Well, this is something that I had to think about a good bit, because do I say the first time seeing Star Wars in the theater, because I still to this day remember my dad in my grandmother's swivel rocker reenacting the scenes where they're shooting the guns in the Millennium Falcon, and that was one of the Star Wars movies were like the last movies that the three of us actually went into a movie theater and sat and watched together. So there's that. There's should I say my first time to Disney MGM Studios and the first time riding Star Tours. But no, to me, it has to be this past Star Wars celebration that was down in Orlando that Mac and I got to go to Easter weekend. And this was actually came about because Mighty Marvel Geeks, which can be heard every Saturday night here on Sorcerer Radio. I say here on Sorcerer Radio, but on Sorcerer Radio, we got invited to broadcast from their podcast stage, and we were the only Marvel podcast to be asked to do so. And as far as we know, we are the first Marvel podcast ever to appear on Celebration's podcast stage. So that's how that came about. But getting to see my son walk around, because I've been to conventions. I've been to large ones. Been to ones in Oakland and Detroit and other places that, yes, they're huge. But for Mac, this is all still really new to him. And so I think it kind of overwhelmed him a little bit. But he was soaking it like a sponge. It was all very new to him, very I really hate to use this word, but it was magical. It's almost like for a teenage geek, it's like going to Disney World for the first time or going to Disneyland. And I know some people are going to get upset at that because, hey, how dare you? But that's kind of the way it was. And yes, we got to meet a lot of people for that. We got to meet the Jordan White, who's the editor over all Marvel's Star Wars titles. Got to meet some artists and some writers from there. Got to run into Timothy Zahn again, because Aljon, you were there when I met him for the first time. You and Kristen both up in Nashville, the Geek Media Expo back in 2013.
What a great guy he is.
He is. And I got to share this little bit, this story here. We're going into the Rebels presentation, the Rebels panel. First of all, you had to be invited to that. You had to be chosen for that, which we were. We got the little press thingies. Press thingies, and then we got to go to the press conference afterwards. But we're sitting there during the panel, and of course, this is where Dave Filoni stands up and tells the whole world and parts beyond that the next season of Rebels is going to be the last. But as we're getting up to go to the press conference, Mac grabs me by the shoulder and says, "Dad, look who's sitting by 2 rows back. I promise you, 2 rows back. It's Timothy freaking Zahn sitting in the panel." And he's kind of like, Dad, can I get my picture with him? Can I get my picture with him? I said, "Son, you can ask, but if he says no, don't push it, because these people, they're busy. They got to get places. They probably got people just chasing them down all over the place." So I tried not to get his hopes up on it. But what does he do? He goes, "Oh, sure, come here." And Mac is wearing a Monty Python Silly Walks t-shirt. It's kind of like a recreation of Abbey Road, but it's got like the Silly Walks guy. 4 of them going across the road. And Zahn just keeps going on and on about how he loves the shirt. I mean, it's not like he doesn't want to talk Star Wars. And this is something I remember from when we met him. He's a very influential figure in Star Wars. He's probably one of the most influential outside of the ones that actually made the movies. But here he is. He's talking about other geek stuff. Like met him, when you and I met him, when the 3 of us met him. I'm sorry, Kristen. My brain does not want to remember you. I apologize for my bad brain. He's talking Incredibles.
Yeah, because you were wearing your Incredibles jersey. Yeah,
I'm not saying there wasn't reason, but he was talking about that, not necessarily Star Wars. And then on this time, he's talking about Monty Python, not Star Wars. I'm just thinking, like, I like this guy. He has other, of course, you know, in your heads, like, they have other interests, but to hear them actually get excited about stuff that's not Star Wars, it just kind of like, it makes them a little bit more accessible.
Right.
They feel a little more real. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we found that to be the case with many of the celebrities and the voice actors and the people behind the scenes that work in Star Wars. I mean, that is only a section of what they are or what they represent, you know, or what they worked on. But by and large, they are just overall just fun-loving people that share the same likes and desires and wants that we have, and geek out about the same type of things and different things. And I think that's great. And you know, Star Wars is the catalyst that brings people together. And whether it's a fan of music or the orchestral movements and things that John Williams has put together, or visual effects, science fiction, fantasy, romance, you know, drama, modern day myths, you know, what have you, storytelling on a grand stage, visual effects, movie editing, sound design, lighting, makeup, special effects. I mean, the list goes on and on. And there's so many people that cite Star Wars as being that influence in their life that had turned them around, or they could identify with a character or the people behind the scenes or whatever. I remember the PBS specials, the behind the scenes specials that they would air, is something that I would videotape and run it time and time and time again, because I loved it so much, especially when they were doing the animatics, the pre-visual sequences for the speeder bikes chase scenes and stuff using the action figures. I mean, they would actually do, this was before they would do any pre-visualization with computers, or you know, or their storyboards. They would actually act it out with action figures, and they would shoot little camera scenes on it. I found it so fascinating. It's like, these people making Star Wars are actually shooting with the action figures that I bought and play with, you know, as a kid. Like, this is super cool. And so great. And yes, and many memories of Christmases and birthdays from decades and decades ago, of my family buying me those Star Wars action figures that meant the world to me. It really did. And it's a shame that I don't have a lot of those figures today, but you know, it's good that we're adults, Eric and Kristen, because we as adults can make the purchases and have them signed by those characters and those actors, right? You know?
Yeah, I was looking around to see if I still have my Chewbacca one. That's the only one that I have from the original toy line, or at least that was the case until somebody on the place where I work, we have our own little, you know, classifieds email list. And this guy said, "Hey, I'm selling 5 of these old first run Kenner Star Wars action figures, and like Darth Vader and Obi-Wan, they still have their capes." And I'm kind of like, oh, I got to check.
That's a big deal to have the cape.
It is. They're missing some things. It's like they're like, Obi-Wan is missing his lightsaber, and I think Darth Vader's is kind of broken in half. But you know, see, that's the thing. And people were, I was telling people about this. They go, "Are they still in the in the blister package? Are they still in the wrapper? Or still in the box?" I said, "No, we actually played with ours when we were kids."
No, I mean, nothing got left in a pack.
No, we don't. We opened everything, and I remember. I think Jabba the Hutt at one point was a mail-in, if I'm not mistaken. It was a mail-in in a Sears catalog or something, and I had mailed away my proofs of purchases because they used to do this when you bought the actual figure. On the very back, they would have the proof of purchase from Kenner. And you would cut out the little corners and send them in via snail mail. And you would hope and you would pray and you would keep your fingers crossed that within 6 weeks' time that action figure would show up at your door for free. It was an amazing thing. You say for free, but of course you had to buy 25 action figures.
Well, yeah.
Right. But
I mean, that was again, another innovation, if you want to call it that, another way that Star Wars changed the landscape, not just in movies, but also in merchandising. Because there wasn't this level of merchandising before Star Wars. I mean, you would have the occasional toy that tied in to something. You would have the occasional comic book that ties into a cartoon series, that sort of thing. And oddly enough, outside of before Star Wars, the people who did the most merchandising for their movies was, you guessed it, Disney. So a lot of that stuff just it rewrote the landscape. And back then, we didn't know about collector value. We had no clue about collector value. They were just cool toys that we wanted to get out and play in the sandbox with.
Oh, exactly. And you know what? When we moved from Ohio down here, my mom was like, what do you want to keep? What do you want to get rid of? And, you're kids. You don't think anything's worth, anything. So you're fine with them giving away everything. Except the only thing I had my parents keep were my She-Ra dolls. Action figures. My She-Ra action figures.
Now, see, I had the 15, and this is because Aljon is playing old commercials. I had the large Darth Vader.
Yes, so did I.
I had that one.
Yep.
I had the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
And my mom donated the Falcon to the church nursery. It only took my cousins about 3 weeks to do what Darth Vader and the entire Imperial fleet could not do.
Did they take cherry bombs to it and blow it up?
No, they didn't need to.
I was just curious because that I did not do that with my Star Wars figures, but I know a lot of my friends that ended up doing all kinds of atrocious things. And what was that character from Toy Story? Oh, Sid, yes, that would totally blow up his action figures. It was rough. It was really rough.
No, my cousins would probably go like, we're going to hyperspeed, and then throw it.
Yes.
Yeah, that really wouldn't have lasted very long either.
These vintage commercials are really a hoot. I mean, I love watching these vintage figure commercials because, I do remember seeing these on TV, whether it was Saturday morning Super Friends on ABC or Sid and Marty Crofts, HRR Puffin stuff, or Shazam on Saturday mornings, watching these ads going, Mom, Dad, new Star Wars action figures. Gots to have it. But they do. I mean, that is a portion of my youth and our youth that I can appreciate the internet for this, because these are memories that have long since disappeared from my mind. And now that I'm watching these commercials again, it literally takes me back to when I was 7, 8 years old, wanting these action figures at home. So it's very cool indeed. Very cool.
Do you remember when the Sears catalog would come in the mail for Christmas catalog? That
was the best.
That was the best, because the thing was like that thick.
Oh yeah.
I'm not kidding. It was like War and Peace, and of course we're kids. We're not gonna care about the hardware section or the sporting goods section or the underwear section. We went straight to the toys.
Oh yeah.
And we went straight to the toys, and we would always circle what we wanted.
Yep.
As like the Star Wars page, I just circled the whole page.
Oh yeah,
it was just save time.
Yeah, and you had the things you couldn't get at Toys R Us from the Sears catalog, because they had the Droid Factory, or they had Jabba's Palace, or the the dioramas that you see here. I mean, those things were all exclusive. And you see, look at that. You see, even the Cantina band was.
I wanted the Cantina. I wanted the Cantina so bad. I had Greedo. I had Walrus Man. I had Luke Skywalker X-Wing pilot. I wanted I wanted that. I wanted the dewback. How bad is that? Because I wanted the dewback, the big lizard they rode.
Oh,
I even wanted the tauntaun with the belly rescue feature.
yeah, the belly rescue. Yeah, that was great.
Do you remember that?
I do remember that because I did not. I got the original tauntaun without the belly rescue. And that was horrible because I was like, man, they just put this out. I just got it. It's like I can't justify buying another one because I already had one, and this one had the. And you see now here's the secondary Millennium Falcon with the Smuggler's Bay, right?
No, the original Millennium Falcon had the Smuggler's Bay in it.
Oh, did it have the Smuggler's Bay?
Yes, it had Smuggler's Bay in it.
Okay,
basically it was a removable floor panel that you could stick.
Yeah, I didn't realize that the Smuggler's Bay was part of the original one. I knew that by the time I got mine, I knew that it definitely had the Smuggler's Bay and the Empire Strikes Back air masks for being inside the creature.
The original one didn't, of course, obviously didn't have the air masks, but it did have the Smuggler Bay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I never did get the Death Star. That was really cool. But you see, so many of our micro machines, so many of our memories are tied into the original toys because we didn't, my family didn't have a VCR growing up, and ultimately we didn't get a VCR until. We rented a VCR. That's how crazy it was back in the day for us. We would actually go
to rent VCRs.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Yes.
we had a local family video, I believe, close to our house. And so when the weekends during the summer especially came, my dad would go down and rent a VCR for a weekend, and then we would rent videotapes, and one of them was the original Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back, and we'd watch, Blade Runner, Indiana Jones, or whatever it was, and we'd all watch it together. And it was a treat, because we didn't have the internet definitely did not exist.
Oh, no.
And we definitely didn't have, we didn't own any type of movies or anything like that. We were lucky growing up to have my dad actually own an 8mm projector so that he could go to the public. Yeah, he could go to the public library and check out Disney 8mm films or movies and play them on the projector, and think that was just really, really super cool. And so when the advent of the VCR came out, that's what really allowed us to really have a lot of fun and relive all those moments of those movies that we would watch in the theater once, because that's what we could do, and relive that. And the toys really did help out. And I had all these micro machines. I thought they were super cool. The battle damage. Those micro machines were great because they went everywhere. So those are just some of our memories of Star Wars in its 40 years. I hope you enjoyed watching
first 40 years.
The first 40 years. That's right. I hope you enjoyed watching some of these retro commercials in the background as we discussed our love of Star Wars and Star Wars weekends. And I just hope that once again, when Star Wars Land opens at the Disney parks, that once again that they do us a solid and make sure they transport us back to the world that we've been wanting to live in and experience firsthand since 1977. And for some of you, that's a long time. For some of you that are just now experiencing Star Wars, hey, that's great. Come along, be part of the bandwagon and enjoy Star Wars in all of its forms, whether it's Lego Star Wars on Disney XD or Disney Channel or Disney Junior, whatever you're experiencing it with, or whether you're a gamer experiencing it for the first time on Star Wars Battlefront for your PS4, or whether you just love the animation or the movies, man, just come on board. There's so much space, if you will, for new fans, young and old, for fans young and old experiencing it. So once again, where can people reach you, Kristen?
They can reach me at Dining at Disney. You can also follow me on social media, Dining at Disney, and subscribe to iTunes, the Dining at Disney podcast with myself and Big Bubba B.
Eric.
Well, you can hear me on Sorcerer Radio Tuesdays at 8 a.m. for the Sorcom Review and Saturdays at 8 p.m., all times Eastern, for Mighty Marvel Geeks. You can also find me on Twitter at Uncle Servo and at Sorcom Review. Also, check out the Sorcom Review's Facebook page, where else it's there on Facebook, and also hit me up in the Sorcerer Radio Disney Fun Zone.
Awesome. Once again, check Kristen and I out at WDW Teak Room on Sorcerer Radios on Fridays, 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. For the replay on Fridays. You can also check us out on demand at WDW Teak Room on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and TuneIn. You can also listen to that podcast as well as WDW After Dark at wdwafterdark.com. Of course, all of our cornucopia of shows are available for on-demand listening at iTunes and Stitcher, all the great podcatchers out there. And if you happen to be checking out our show on your Amazon Echo or your Dot, be sure to download the TuneIn app, and you'll be able to hear all the podcasts from Dining at Disney, Mighty Marvel Geeks, as well as WDW Tiki Room on there. And we'd like to send a special shout out to our podcast partners at weebiegeeks.net. There's some great podcasts there to listen to. Not only can you find the Mighty Marvel Geeks, but you can also find Dining at Disney, as well as Tiki Room and WDW After Dark on there, and discover so much more geekery. It's going to make your head spin, much like R2D2. So be sure to check that out and support our show using all of our links there at www.afterdark.com. On behalf of the crew, don't forget, it's better after dark. May the Force be with you. Happy 40th birthday, Star Wars. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.